Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the DVC Show, coming to you from the Bob Varley Studio in Orlando, Florida. I'm your host, Pete Werner, joined at the table this week by my good friends, Marissa Valaton, the Director of Sales and Marketing.
Hello.
For DVCResaleMarket.com. Mr. Paul Krieger, Senior Editor of DVC Fan and Member Relations Supervisor for DVC Rentals. I was going to talk slower, so you had to do the wave longer.
Slow motion it. Yeah.
Linda Smith, DVC Sales Associate with DVC Resale Market.
Greetings. Thank you for having me.
Realtor and co-owner of MovingToOrlando.com, Mr. Sean Falk.
Hey, everyone.
And our producer, Mr. Corey Fiascanaro.
Welcome home.
And this week, we wanted to talk about a couple of articles that have been written by one of our contributors on DVCFan.com, Diane Whiting. And I'm trying to pull it up. I just had it here. And there it is. It was on Safari, not Chrome. That's why. By Diane Whiting, called Hard Truths About Disney Vacation Club. She did the first article back in April. And she did another one a few weeks ago in October. And we thought this might be a good topic to discuss.
I think it really harkens to all of the things that I think some of us wish we knew when we had first bought into Disney Vacation Club. Some of the things we might have known when we bought in, but maybe didn't listen to. So it just sort of gives a good perspective to maybe, the new person trying to come into DVC for the first time, or also some tips for the experienced owner as well. So
okay, so let's start. Should we start with the first article or the second?
Let's go back.
The first one?
Go back to the original.
Let's go back to the original. We'll have links to these in the show notes down below. So the first hard truth. Do we agree with this? It's not a financial investment.
I feel like history would disagree with this one.
See, I'm inclined to agree with you. I mean, I don't think you should go into it with the mindset of it's strictly a financial investment. Not the way you would, let's say, an investment property, like something you're going to rent out. But
yeah.
I don't know, though, because, Disney has right of first refusal still. So, even if things crashed, around us, y'all, if anyone was with, were you doing sales in, 2008, 2009 or no? But, did that tank things to a degree?
So I wasn't doing DVC sales at the time, but I was working on the ships doing sales.
Oh, right.
And so everything kind of paused.
Okay.
But I don't think it tanked. Linda, you were there.
I was there. And I have to tell you that as a direct guide, we were never allowed to tell a guest that this is an investment. So the wordsmithing was very, very important. So it was always about this is an investment in your family's vacation future. Is how we did that. But I think, and you've done this too, probably last week, I've probably talked to 6 or 7 members looking to list, and they've all said, or I've said to them, I could never have told you that you're doing what's going to happen right now. You're going to have a capital gain.
Yeah.
I could never tell you that you're going to make money on this if you bought it 10 years ago.
See, I don't have those, we don't have those restrictions. Where,
Right.
We can say anything.
Anything we want.
To a limit.
I'm amazed how much the contracts I bought 2 years ago,
Right.
2 years ago, have appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
I've just sold a couple, and
I'm
looking forward to those checks.
the last couple years, I think the market's gone up about 30% across the board. So it's hard to look at that and go, it's not an investment at all. But I think to the point of don't buy it for the purpose, because ultimately
Right.
Disney owns everything, right? So they're in charge. They have final say. So it's not like you buy a house where you own the land, you own the home, you rent it out however you want. With Disney, there's certain parameters set in terms of if you're using it just for if you're going out and buying 40 contracts and going to rent them and strip them and resell them, you might get hand slapped or caught for doing that. So in the big scheme of things, no, this probably isn't going to be your side hustle for major investment. But if you buy today and turn around and have to resell 5 years from now, will you probably break even or have a decent profit?
I think
Probably.
as long as you're using it for yourself, like I wouldn't recommend buying it to rent the points out or anything. Like you're not gonna make money on that necessarily. But if you're using it, I mean, you also have to factor in those are vacations you would have had to paid cash to use. So I'm like, even for me, I know when I got my Alani, when I went through and added up, and I'm like literally like 2 or 3 trips, and it's kind of paid for itself, except with minusing out the dues every year. But still, I'm like, this is gonna pay for itself pretty fast. So at that point, anything else is profit.
I go back to, like, it pays for itself in terms of the room and the accommodations portion of this, but you are, like, becoming a member, you are essentially committing to years of Disney vacations, which also comes with tickets, air travel, food, all of that kind of stuff. So to that degree, it's not necessarily a financial investment.
Yeah, I don't think you should go into it looking at it as a financial investment, but I think one of the legs that prop up the decision is that, historically speaking, this asset appreciates pretty well.
It's vacation insurance when you look at it that way. It's a guarantee that you can go when the economy, because look what happened back in 08, 09 when the recession hit. And a lot of people, well, guess who were the first people back? The members of DVC coming back in because their room was paid for.
Well, it's a hedge against inflation.
Totally is.
Because every year, the price of those hotel rooms goes up and up and up. This can't. They can shuffle points around, but if they add points to one night, they got to take them away from somewhere else. There's a fixed number of points every year they're allowed to allocate. So it is a hedge against inflation. So, what I'm paying for, what I buy now is still the same value 5 years from now, even though the corresponding hotel room has probably gone up 30-40% at least. With Disney, probably higher.
It's a nice segue, though, into the next hard truth, though, which does go up and up and up. Which
Dues are forever.
Dues are forever and always increasing. Yep.
But I think, again, in the scheme of things, if you look at like a lot of traditional timeshare where Disney maintains their values so well, is that these are resorts. It's not like the resort where you go, hey, there's this place in Mexico and you're buying it, and now the dues cost more than the actual cost of staying at that resort in Mexico. Versus Disney, the dues, they go up traditionally about 3 to 6% each year. But if you're referencing your dues in terms of the value of the hotel stay, you're still usually always winning.
Yeah. That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, we used to show slides on the ship, when we did our presentations there in D Lounge, remember it very well, what the Contemporary was when it first opened many, many years ago. And it just blew people away. You could hear everybody go, because today.
Look at Grand California.
Oh, gosh, yes.
What was the price per point when they opened?
It was high 80s, low 90s, depending on the devotion.
So think about that. Anybody who's followed Grand California, think about that. It was high 80s, low 90s when it went on sale. When did it go on sale?
2000?
It was
2010.
2009, 2010. It was back then, and I'll tell you what, hindsight's always 20/20, right? Boy,
Should have
I'll tell
bought.
you what. Should have bought like 10, 50-point contracts, Pete.
Because those contracts now go for what? 300 a point?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
300 a point.
Yeah.
On the resale market.
Yes.
Yeah.
On the resale market. It's that. I mean, and now, we should mention that Monera is now able to finance DVC properties outside of Florida. So if you want to finance Hilton Head, if you want to finance Grand Californian, if you want to finance Alani, Monera can help you with that now. But, I look at that, and I think that's why we're going to see the Disneyland Tower come in at a very high price point.
Well, even if you are going to use it yourself, I mean, I sell a lot of condo hotels in the area, and the HOA per month averages about $500 a month in HOA dues, and that does include all your utilities except electricity. And then you usually have about $200 to $300 of a furniture reserve that's held back every month out of your profits to revamp and all this stuff, so that when they need to remodel and everything, they have that. So that's about $700 or $800 per month to do that. Now, of course, you're renting that out and making some money on it. But as far as these go, I mean, if your dues are $1,000 to $3,000-ish, I would imagine probably around $3,000 my guess would be the average per year, that's still adding up to a lot less per month than it would be. It's still a little under $300 a month.
Yep.
And the pent-up demand is there. Look at all the Californians that have been waiting.
Oh, yeah.
And waiting and waiting.
There's
and
a
then
wait
COVID.
list.
Yeah, because if COVID hadn't hit, we'd probably see it built, right?
No, absolutely. The next on the list, there's no such thing as too much research. How many, let's, talk to people who sold DVC directly for Disney. What percentage would you say of the people you sold were impulse decisions?
I mean, I would say probably 80% of the people who joined on site. It wasn't something where they went home, thought about it, and called back later. 80% of the people who were going
Wow.
to become a member did. Now, had some of them heard about it and done some research? Yes. But in the scheme of things, I don't know. I would say probably 60% were in the pixie dust, loving Disney so much, and made that decision.
Absolutely. And, the price point, though, of years ago, because I go way back to 95, I'm just kind of ancient here, but, dealing with that type of guest at a much, much lower price point, and then coming in right now, because I think we'd all agree that researchers out there, and I've even selling direct had times where I'd walk into the living room of Saratoga and somebody's got their laptop open doing research. So I think the guest right now is a lot more informed than they used to be.
Well, I
Yeah.
also sold a lot on cruise ships.
Cruises are
And
different. Yep.
There's not much research you can do, especially by the time when I was on the ship. 'Cause
Especially
the
without
Wi-Fi
Wi-Fi.
didn't work.
Well, it still doesn't. I was just on the ship 3 weeks ago, and
There's no chance in researching.
Well, you had them. You had them, right? Because that was great about the ships, right? I'm sure Marissa would agree. But, you're on the Fantasy. They're not going to jump off. You've got them for a week.
Yeah.
So if they want to go back to their stateroom and think about it, we often sent them back to do that because we knew we had them, right? They're going to come back. A big majority of them for what bought on the ship. Love that.
But I do agree with this. I think coming from the direct side, even basic things like U-share, you don't have control over that. As a direct guide, you're selling whatever U-share you're told that you can sell for that time period. So, or even home resort, you're selling whatever that live inventory is. So you're not necessarily giving the guest the full array of best options. So I think research is key, because if you're saying, hey, I love the boardwalk, I only want to stay at the boardwalk. Well, then if you're buying impulsively at Riviera on a U-share that makes no sense, then it probably wasn't the best purchase, where research would have done you a lot of good.
This will tell you, it'll probably be sad. This will tell you a fun night at the Krieger house. Amy and I sat around one evening and went back through our old text messages and our old chats from when we first considered becoming DVC members, and we thought we were like educated and all of that stuff. And you just sit around and laugh, and you're like, I knew nothing back then.
Can you publish those?
No. For the right price, maybe, but no, like I agree and I disagree only from the standpoint of the person that I am. If I do too much research, I'm going to talk myself out of it.
That's
like
true.
any scenario, like a lot of the major like purchases in my life have always been impulsive to a degree, because if I do think about it too much, like I will just consider all of the circumstances and become overwhelmed and just say, nope, not going to do it. So.
all right, next on the list. This is absolutely true. You will love it more than you. I don't know if that's a hard truth, but you will love it
think
more
so.
than you think you will. What my thought process was when I bought my first contract versus what the experience was on the other side. There's just no way. I mean, you can listen to people talk about it, and the people that love it, especially, listen to them talk about it. But the experience is so much better. It really is. It really is. I love being a DVC member. And as I said in the previous show that we just recorded, I'm not a fan of DVC management. I'm not a fan of Disney management at the moment. But I'm a fan of the product. I'm a fan of the hotels. I'm a fan of the experience. And where I get pissed off with Disney management is when they do stupid stuff that interferes with that. I think that's what we all get pissed off about. But
So we get to be fans of our contracts. That's that's what we're fans
well,
of.
I'm wild about the cabins at Copper Creek. I'm wild about Wilderness Lodge. I love Old Key West. I love Aulani. These are amazing experiences. I loved Aulani before I was a DVC member.
Yeah.
And I loved the Disney resorts before I was a DVC member. And I had my favorites. DVC did change that. DVC did absolutely change which resorts I was really attached to. But I think that it does change your relationship with Disney in a very positive way. That's my.
And the flexibility. It's so unique in the fact that if you want to go and say, hey, is there a night available next month? You have the option to do that, or if you say, I want to do something crazy and book, maybe you're always booking a studio and you want to bank and borrow and book a 2-bedroom, you can do that. Where a lot of timeshares are so stiff in terms of this is your room, this is what you get every year. Disney's just so great because it offers so many different options.
Well, and people ask me all the time, you live here, why do you own DVC? I got to tell you, DVC as a local is fantastic. Being able to just pop on the member services website, look and see what's available. Oh, hey, you know what? There's a 1-bedroom at Copper Creek available next week. Let me grab it. And you go have a little staycation, and you eat at Geyser Point, and you eat over at Whispering Canyon. You just hang out at the resort. You don't have to go near a theme park. And I've done that. I've done that multiple times. And I mean, for me, that's, and we have, with moving to Orlando with our real estate business, we have a lot of DVC members.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I bet you.
That
it's
are
so
buying
many.
houses down here that have no intention of selling their contracts. None.
Oh.
Because you also, it's your other guest bedroom because, yeah, I want to live in Florida and I love my family, but I don't want them staying with me. Here, go stay in that
Enjoy
resort.
Animal Kingdom.
Well, actually, I have a lot of people who are buying investment properties here in the area. And then if they do have those last minute trips, and if their own home is blocked off, that's fine, but they don't want to block their house off for like Christmas and Thanksgiving and these holidays are going to bank them a lot of money, but they still want to come for the holidays. Like they still want to come
Right.
in the summertime and all that. So they're like, that's what my DVC is for. Like I'm using it in June because I don't want to block my house off for a week in June.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot of wasted money. So
Exactly.
yeah.
All right, let's go over to the newer article. Use here matters.
You wouldn't know anything about that.
Shut up. Stop judging me. Judgy McJudgerson
That
over
just
there.
harkens me back to like some of the earliest shows we did where, that was discussed.
I
and-
was told, stay with one use here. I'm like, pisha. Now I've got like 4. And it's a juggling act. It's a juggling act. But I also, again, for me, living here, having the flexibility I have, the kind of job that I have that allows me to go kind of do what I want when I want, more or less, it's not as big a deal. I think if I was living back in Jersey and my time here was limited, that would be stupid for me to have, I think, 4 use years? I was told, stay with one use here.
And it's not that it's unmanageable. It's just it takes a lot more work to potentially
it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
It really is.
I'll be honest, even I just have one and it's December so even now, like it is weird to me that I've not gotten my 2021 points yet. Like I'm not in 2021 yet with DVC and I'm like, I don't like that. But I also try to add up, like I'm literally trying to, okay, what is 7 months? Like what is 7 months from December into the next thing? So like what's my cutoff date? So even that gets a little confusing for me. I'm glad it's staggered.
It's also important to remember that whether your points are available at this moment or not, when you're going to make a reservation, if your points will be available, you can book the reservation.
Right.
That is
Exactly.
the most common question that I think is out there.
I agree.
And misconception. Think of points as the number of points that you will have when you check in, when you walk in the doors to Boardwalk, or when you walk in the doors to wherever you're planning that vacation for. The number of points that you'll have available on that day is what you have available to book with, even if you're booking 11 months from then.
Right.
So
Exactly. Because, we hear people say, oh, I want to go next January, but I don't have the points. Well, are you going to have the points next January? Well, yeah. Okay, well, you can go ahead and book. That's all that matters. Like you said, how many points are you going to have the day you check in?
The biggest misconception, absolutely, is that U-Share, oh, Linda, my U-Share is February, so I've got to wait till February 1st to book, right? Absolutely not.
No.
It's when the points fall in. It's like a fiscal year. That's the easiest way to explain it to a family. It's your fiscal year. When those points come, you make that reservation, like you said, 11 versus 7. Keep it very simple that way. Now, the big complexion is that if you've got multiple U-Shares and different names on a title, now you've got, from what we understand, you've got multiple logins. That, I think, becomes extremely hard for someone, particularly somebody new. So I try and keep somebody away from doing that.
Sean, like you said, though, even to me, December is the most
It's
confusing.
the most confusing this year.
It's like,
Commonly
I'm
so.
like, wait, you don't have your 20.
And then you pay your dues so far in advance
I
and you get
know.
your points at the end. But I think another thing too is that 11-month, 7-month booking window. Like I'll talk to a lot of people who say, hey, we always travel in May. So I need a U-Share that's June so that I can book my 11-month window, which has nothing to do with when you're staying in May. Ideally, for a May U-Share or for a May vacation, you want a U-Share February up until May. You don't want to have your points after where you're stuck borrowing ahead. So, yeah,
Yes.
U-Share definitely,
Definitely is important.
yes.
All right, next on the list, resort availability is never guaranteed. And that is the God's honest truth.
That's
you know.
the situation I'm in right now. So I have points that I need to use for Alani, and it's booked. So, and it's never booked, but it's completely booked up, and I cannot use them. So it's very I'm like, oh, like I waited. Like I was like, I'm just like, it's fine. It's always available. So like I waited, and then I'm not gonna get it. So I mean, like, and that's the thing. I could wait list it, but which I'm sure is what people go through that want to come to Disney World, and because I live here, so I'm like, it wouldn't be a problem to wait list here. I get it or I don't. But for me, I'm like, I'm not gonna book and plan to go to Hawaii on a wait list and like hope that it works out. But I'm sure that's what other people think when they're coming here. It's like, well, we
Right.
can't book 5 people on a trip to Disney and then not know if we have anywhere to stay.
And this was bad before, but the effects of the past 18 months have made it even worse in terms of availability. Like people have so many backlogged points that they're gonna lose coming up, and people are just booking anything and everything that's possibly available that's out there. So it's I don't see it going away either anytime soon. Especially with us being in the 50th anniversary right now, I think that the effects of what we've dealt with and the closure and all of that kind of stuff is gonna reverberate the longest probably within DVC, just because of the effects that it's having on the entire system and stuff like that. So
So you think the borrowing restrictions are going to go on for a while?
yeah, I don't see my prediction in terms of the borrowing restrictions going away is going to correlate basically with the end of the 50th celebration. So count back basically 11 months from whenever the 50th ends. We might see it happen like the middle of this year for bookings that are going to occur, 11 months from now. But even saying that and seeing what availability is right now, I think we're going to be here for a while. And remember, we've been here before. I think Doc reminded us on one of our shows where we talked about, borrowing restrictions when DVC first started. The 50% borrowing rule, that was the rule, and then they made it 100% for what all of us know as the present day DVC. So
you think it might be here to stay?
it could very well be, which surprised me only because it is a big selling factor. It was always, I mean, you guys can probably talk to that. It was always a big marketing factor for Disney Vacation Club.
Oh, it was, Paul. It was. Years ago, many people bought in just because they wanted to get in with the idea, hey, I could bank and borrow. So I think if Disney keeps that as a rule in perpetuity, it's going to cause a lot of negative out there because now you're forcing people to buy more points to
But
keep
if we
pace.
go back to the financial trend, forcing people to buy more points
That's
may fit
what
with the
they like
narrative.
to do.
Yeah.
They like to do, but it does hurt for those that can't.
Well, next on the list is read the fine print, discussing the borrowing issues and how that's changed since the pandemic. So I think we kind of just covered that.
Right.
Yes.
I signed all my mortgage documents and my new home documents in about 3 minutes. So I didn't follow this one.
Yeah.
When I bought a house.
That's what I always tell people. They never do. Like, I'll send people their contract because everything's online. I'll send it to them, and literally like 30 seconds later, it's like I get the alert that they signed it, and I was like, that was 19 pages, like of a $500,000 purchase. I'm
With
like, I'm glad
DVC.
I've read it and I know it. So like, I know I didn't mess you up, but like
With DVC, you can't change it, right? Like, So
Right.
with real estate, sometimes there's some
Exactly.
negotiation where you
Yeah.
can say, like, let me cross out that line or
Right.
this closing date.
Yeah,
with
there's no
DVC,
back
you
and
don't have
forth.
control. So you can read the fine print. Is it going to change anything?
no.
Nope.
By the way,
and let's be honest. Let's be honest. Most of us sign our DBC contracts the way we agree to terms and conditions on iTunes.
Yeah.
well, this is probably a good time to mention that, Paul, that's actually my house. Turn to page 7 and you'll see that it's mine.
Man.
So I do
I've
expect
been
my
wondering why
rent.
you've been there for the
Yeah,
entire
it's
time
weird,
that I've
right?
lived there so far. Yeah.
And the last one on this list, I think, is probably the most important hard truth you need to accept in becoming a Disney Vacation Club member, and that is add-on-itis is real. The struggle is real. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's this condition that seems to afflict most of us. After we purchase, we sit down and we think, okay, this is how I vacation. I'm going to need 200 points. And you get your 200 points. And you start using your 200 points. And you're like, oh no, I don't have enough points. And look, wow, that contract looks really, really good. That contract looks really, really good. And you add on another contract. And you add on another one. And another one. I'm not speaking from personal experience at
You
all.
have no idea on this topic.
3
I've
days later,
heard-
you have 2,000
I've heard
points.
tell. I've heard tell of the experience, but I certainly.
I was contacted by a pharmaceutical company recently. They're trying to work through and create a cure, but it's very difficult.
And again, to give you an idea, I decided I really could go ahead and get rid of some of my contracts. I didn't need necessarily the points I had, all of the points I had. And 2 of them sold. I think 2 or 3 other ones were up there. And then I saw a Riviera for 144 a point. And I'm like, okay, no, I have to. Oh, that's too good. And then I'm like, I emailed Derek. I said, pull my other contract. I'm not getting rid of my points. It really is a thing. It really is a thing. And it's a thing for a lot of, it's fun. It's fun. I'm going to tell you something. There's nothing more fun than finding another. And like Monera, we talk about Monera being the crack dealer. They make it so easy. They make it so easy if you're sitting there at 3
Can I
o'clock.
buy this contract? Yes,
3
you can.
o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, and you're like, oh, that's a good looking contract. Let me see. You go to Monera, you fill out your stuff, and like I said, you fill out your application. They should just forego anything else and just have a screen that comes up with no other text other than the word yes.
Confetti.
With confetti. I mean, so add-on-itis without that is a real thing. You add that in, and add-on-itis is fatal.
It's like a rash that doesn't hurt.
Well, I think selling even direct, because if you've bought a contract direct, for the most part, Disney has backdated points, where ideally you're going to get points from 6 months previous or even a year previous. So they kind of set it up. I think this is their strategy, right? So if you're buying 200 points, you start out with 400. So you don't get used to a 200-point membership. You get used to a 400-point membership. And then 2 years later, you go, wait, all I know how to use is 400 points, and I only have 200. Add-on-itis.
Yeah.
That was the experience with one of our direct contracts. We were actually staying at Boardwalk, and we were not owners there at the time. Had been looking, but impatience got the best of us in terms of the resale market, and so literally called our direct guide, sort of said, hey, interested in 50 points at Boardwalk. Said, okay, I'll have a van pick you up in 10 minutes, and we'll get everything taken care of. So it was bada
Easy
bing,
peasy.
bada boom. And,
Oh, yeah.
and like you said, double points. So
It's not hard to do.
And if you knew how to go searching for the use year, this goes way, way back as a guide, a direct guide. You had a use year that was going to be the default use year, as they called it, for that year. Everybody's going to go after that. But we knew if you really, really had the training, we knew how to go searching to make that more attractive. And so many times did that so you could get, because not always on the default was it going to be renewed as quickly, or the backdated. And that's what's so good about resale is when people come to us, and they say, well, I'm thinking I want to get a direct contract, but I want to buy resale. Mm-hmm. We always say to them, it's up to you, do what's best for your family. Might want to get your resale contract first because these sellers have a use year attached to it. Whereas if you go to Disney, then they're going to need to match that. But if you go to Disney first, then they're going to have a certain use year they're going to sell. And we may or may not have that match for you. So up to you, do what's best. But that's been really, really great for a lot of people.
It's a thing. It's a thing. The struggle is real. So thank you to Diane Whiting for those 2 awesome articles. We'll have links to those in the show notes down below. And thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you again next week with another episode of The DVC Show. Have a great week, folks.